It's time again for the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast with Dr. John Dentico. The mission of our podcast is to provide 21st century leadership training for a talent-driven world. We help organizations implement strategies and practices designed to attract, hire, engage, and retain top talent while mitigating the effects of burnout. Our guests are experts at various fields of organizational dynamics, including, but not limited to, leadership, management, communication, and coaching. They bring a world of knowledge and solutions to our viewers and listeners. I am sincerely grateful for their participation and ideas. So let's dive in. And if you enjoy our podcast, please like, share, and subscribe. We genuinely appreciate your support. Hello again and welcome to the next episode of the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. I'm Dr. John Dentico, your host. With me today is Joy Meserve. After 2 decades of executive experience in scaling operations and developing leaders, Joy Meserve founded Leading with Joy to help other executives develop leaders that foster high-performing and joyful workplace cultures where both people and profits thrive. Joy leverages her experience as the former Chief Operating Officer of ID Tech, where the company's growth and success were inextricably linked to the award-winning culture. Joy brings a unique perspective to the forefront with her commitment to introducing leaders to a simpler, more practical way for busy leaders to scale their time. I am very pleased and honored to have her with us today. Hello, Joy. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Doing wonderful. Thank you, John.
Great that you're here with me, and I've been looking forward to this for several weeks. What do you say we get down to business? I have a question for you. Here it is. If you were to list the types of coaching issues you repeatedly face and your perspective on why they keep coming up, and specifically the remedies you apply when you're faced with these particular issues.
Yeah. There's so much going on in today's world of business and leaders. Specifically, I work with a lot of executive women leaders. The world is expanding at a faster rate than ever with change. We've got AI that's really changing the workplace. We've got climate change that's really changing environments. We have the pandemic we just came out of that has, shifted the way we work. And so there's so much change happening. And at the same time, we have companies over here who are reacting to that change in a way that is tightening everything up, right? We're going lean. We're being more effective with our resources. And so what I'm finding is a lot of burnout. When right now, what we really need is drivers of innovation. We need people firing on all pistons so that we can cope with this inordinate amount of change. People say we've entered a new era, the age of disruption. In the last few years, that has grown. Since 2019, the amount of disruption companies have experienced is 183%. And yet, 3 out of 4 workers are saying they're experiencing burnout. 1 out of every 4 workers is saying that they feel burned out all the time, often or always. So we have a dilemma right now. How do we motivate people? How do we get them to really achieve success for themselves so they can find fulfillment, they can find integration and balance with work while driving success and revenue and profits for a business?
Very interesting. I will tell you that over the course of the last year, I too have come in contact with this problem of burnout. And it affects every group that I've spoken to, whether they're nurse practitioners, pharmacists, fence builders. They're all going through this period where, in a sense, they're deriving no meaning from the things that they do. Because for me, It's not so much that I want to motivate somebody. I want them to be motivated. I want that to come from within. And so what do you think is missing, Joy? What is really missing in terms of this connection point, if you will, between the organization and its people?
I believe what is missing is that leaders are failing to understand how to tap into people's internal drive, how to give them a workplace where they are finding fulfillment there. And it's really rather simple. I have a framework that I call OPS. It's short for opportunities. And so the first step in that is really offering ownership. And this could be, hey, what are the problems our organization is facing right now? And what do we want to do about those problems? And if somebody's coming up with fantastic ideas, it's okay, great. Are you, as a leader, listening right now to everybody's issues that they're bringing forth and their ideas around how to solve them? Because if you listen closely, you will find the leaders in your organization who are ready to take a stab at that and solve it, because that is where they're going to find motivation and fulfillment. And so we don't feel like we're burned out at work when we're in flow, when we're working on things that we get to solve, where we get to apply our skills and our strengths, where we understand I'm moving toward mastery of this. And in taking ownership and providing ownership, leaders are giving people some of our core motivators as human beings, because in that process, leaders or the individual taps into autonomy, freedom of choice. They tap into their movement toward mastery, and they feel a sense of purpose, which is my contributions matter here.
I think that's absolutely on the money. Absolutely right. There are, from my research, I can tell you that there are three factors that matter to people in the workplace today. One is the fact that they're looking for values alignment. Does the organization care about the same things I care about? Number two is, again, just as you so aptly pointed out, involvement in the decision-making processes of the organization. People want to matter, and they want their work to matter. People search for a level of control and autonomy over their own destinies. No question about it. And the third one is, of course, they want training and learning that helps them develop. And I think, and I'd like to make a statement here at this point and get your reflection on that. I think one of the issues that's just emerged in these past 8 to 9 months is that there is a tectonic, and I use that term tectonic as an emphasis term, a tectonic transformational shift in the relationship between the talent, the skilled talent pool, if you will, and the entity we call the organization. So much so that the talent, in many respects, is dictating the terms under which they will hire on and stay. Mm-hmm. And I believe that many organizations haven't realized it. They still think they're operating in the old, you work for us, we'll tell you how this is going to go operation. So I'd love to get your reflection on that statement and how you see that transforming the workplace, number one, and how you see it in the future.
I hope that what is right, because what is out there, it is people, especially our younger generation, Generation Z, is coming out with a stance. They're saying, I will work within these boundaries. But when you give me 2 roles to work and you expect me to do the job of 2 people, I'm out. I'm not going to stand for it any longer. And I will tell you that what I'm hearing that from Gen Z. They set their boundaries very clearly. And by 2030, they will make up 30% of the workforce. So this is in just a few years, they will be a third of the workforce out there. and they will have those strong boundaries set in place for employers. At the other end of the spectrum, women my age, we are Gen X. We are exiting the C-suite. We've been there, we've done that, and we're burned out from it. And so now we're saying, hey, we're going to carve our own path. We're going to go into consulting. We're going to go into speaking. We're going to go into doing workshops. We're going to help organizations on our own terms. And so those two things should be a huge signal to leaders and employers. It's no longer up to you how you treat your employees. They are telling you how they need to be treated, or else you're going to have a talent drain. Where are you going to find your people if the smart ones and the educated ones are going to say, I'm not going to go for that. You need to treat me with respect. I need to be seen, heard, and valued. I need my autonomy. I need my choice. And I need to be recognized for the contributions I'm bringing to the organization and not under-resourced. And I think that's the big thing, is when companies are cutting roles in order to try to make their shareholders happy, then you get people who are just burned out because they're asked to do too much.
I am seeing exactly the same thing. In fact, I mentioned to you earlier, just before the podcast started, I'm doing a webinar tomorrow for the American Council on Engineering Companies. And one of the interesting statistics I ran into as I was preparing for it has to do with women in STEM. Okay, women in STEM, and I was just bowled over by one statistic that said that women who receive their degrees between 2010, I think it is, and 2016, the retention rate for those women in STEM is 27%. So let me key off that and come back to your point. Women of your generation, what would it take to keep you in the C-suite? What would it have done to say, hey, you know what? We can't lose you. You can't leave us. We need you. I know it's a big question, but what would have taken for you? And I'm also going to extend that to women of your generation to remain in the C-suite.
It's a really good question, and one I've tried to help other women with. So there was a great Headspace video that I captured one time, and they introduced the 3M framework. I believe that what we're after is a balance with some wellness. It's saying, we recognize that you're working really hard, and we understand that you need to take full breaks during the day. And so this 3M framework really offers a great way to do that. And so they offer, it stands for, the 3Ms is macro, meso, and micro breaks. So once a month, schedule one day where you are not at work, where you're off and you're doing whatever it is that feeds you, that feeds your soul. You're in nature, you're doing a project, you're doing something once for one day a month. That's the macro break. The meso break in the middle is find during the week 2 hours to disassociate yourself from work. And the third one, the micro break, is find some time during the day, 5 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, where you disconnect. And I think if we say, this is acceptable, this is what we want you to be doing. And in fact, it's the opposite of what's actually happening. What's actually happening is we're getting calls on Sundays. We're getting calls when we're at our child's volleyball game. We're getting calls when we're at the Women's March in DC. That happened to me. So we're getting calls when we're trying to do something else for ourselves, and it's about work. And there actually is a law right now that's under consideration in the state of California, which is to say that employees have a right to their time when they are off, where there's no distractions and no disruptions from work. And the flip side, if you just read what's on the subtext of that, which is, hey, employers, hands off your employees when they're clocked out, right? And we've created this culture with technology where we're chained to our cell phones and our laptops. We go on vacation, we bring it all, and it's not healthy. And so many studies, time after time, for those workplaces that go to 4 days a week, guess what? They're more productive. When you are burned out, what is the thing that you don't want to do is work when you're burned out, right? So how do we get people to adopt a healthier lifestyle while working and have a healthier relationship with it? It's one of those things. So, yeah.
Very good answer. I agree. I'm always looking for things like the implication of leadership in terms of leading this 5-generation workforce we have now. Are there commonalities? I absolutely believe that to be the case. There are commonalities. I don't care what age you are, how young you are. There are things that people need. It's just simple as that. And I think what's going to happen, Joy, this is just my perspective, is organizations are going to have to come to grips with exactly what you've talked about, or they won't have any talent. And operations will either slow down or cease because the talent now is driving the bus. The talent is in charge. And because of the decline, I'll give you one example. Because of the declined birth rates over the course of the last 30 years or so, you can't go back 20 years and have a baby. We haven't figured out how to do that. So it is what it is. And so part of this whole problem has been coming for a long time. And now it's here. And people, I can tell you, organizations are scurrying about saying, how do I get my hands on great people, really good people to do the work? But the real interesting aspect of that I find even more, not just interesting, but more critical, is how do you keep them?
That's right.
And people tell me that all the time, wherever I'm presenting or whatever. It's not so much we can't get them. It's just we can't keep our hands on them. They decide to leave after a while. And I think that this framework, the 3M framework you just spoke about, is going to have to become evident to people because they're going to have to search for ways to say, what can we do to hang on to these people, to hang on to the good talent that we have?
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you this question. I know that in our workup to the podcast today, you and I have talked about some similar things. And one of them, of course, is this notion of partner leadership. Now, I like to think you and I are orbiting around the same planets because I believe in this concept of partner versus follower. Okay? For me, followership is dead. I'll just say it right out. Followership is dead, and it doesn't jibe with the workplace that we see before us today, where people want to be involved in the decision-making processes. I'd like you to give me your reflections, your perspectives on partner leadership, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. So partner leadership is saying that I'm a leader and I've been given these gifts. These gifts are the employees that I am allowed to manage. They're under my care. They're my direct reports. And if you see them as gifts rather than as problems, rather than as work, right? Your mindset shifts. And all of a sudden, it's how can I utilize these gifts in the organization and how can I bring them fulfillment? If you change it to the organization, instead of it, these organization we need to hit these goals and these revenue numbers, and they need to do their job or else. It's how can I leverage all of the gifts that they have? Each person has their own strengths, right? And so when you're looking across the organization at the problems that exist or the things that need to get done, it's saying, I wonder if so-and-so would really like to work on that. And rather than just assigning and foisting it upon them, which is so often what we what leaders do and why I don't like the word delegate. That it implies it's just been given to them and that's it. Washing my hands of that, right? It is saying, okay, here's this opportunity for ownership. Is this something that you would like to take on? Now it's their choice. It's in their court. We come back to autonomy. Whether or not they take it on is up to them. And here's a big signal, leaders. If they say no, they have too much. They're already under-resourced and overwhelmed. Because if it is something that's of interest to them, maybe they brought up this issue and they have great ideas, they're going to want to do it. So back to my framework on ops. The O stands for offer ownership. The first P stands for prime. It's our job as leaders to prime them to get them ready for these opportunities that come about. It could be taking on small tasks at first, which lead to the bigger task in the long run. And it's also expressing our belief in them. I'm a huge fan of the Pygmalion effect, and I believe in it 100%. It is saying, I believe that you're capable in doing this, and I'm going to be there to partner with you along the way. You can do it. Here's this huge mountain to climb. I know you can do it. I'm going to be your Sherpa, right? We're going to get you up Mount Everest. And the second P is partnering. That is coaching. It's guiding. It's supporting. It's giving them feedback, positive and constructive, both types of feedback. And notice how I didn't say we're going to dive in and do it for them. We're not micromanaging here. I'm not trying to add a lot of extra work to our leaders' lives. They're very busy. So this can be handled in your weekly one-on-one. This is the main crux of your weekly one-on-one. What projects do you have that you're working on, and how can I support you in those? Are there obstacles or blockers that maybe I can help you remove? And lastly, the S, it stands for spotlight. Because after this person has taken on this big project that you gave them ownership over, it's time to shine a spotlight on them. We want to give them a forum to showcase their work. And it's not now you saying, I see you as a leader. It's everyone else in the organization gets to see them as a leader. Maybe it's putting them in front of your team. Okay, team, now you can see what this person's been working on the last month or two and how this process goes. And then the team starts to see them as leaders. Again, back to the Pygmalion effect. When other people start to see you as a leader, they treat you as such. And then your positive mind starts coming in. You get the positive thoughts. I am a leader. Other people are treating me like a leader, so I am a leader. Maybe this is putting them in front of the whole company. Maybe if you're working with an executive, it's putting them in front of the board of directors. How can you spotlight their contributions to the company so they're not only getting recognition from you, but from everyone else?
I couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely. That is a formula for success, in my opinion. No question. I say that because 30 years ago, a little over 30 years ago, when I started developing my own perspective, my own model of leadership, my collaborative model of leadership is based on one thing and one thing only: contribution. You put the problem in front of someone and say, and this is not contribution where, this is what I think we should do. What do you guys think we should do? No, none of that. You put the problem in front of someone and say, who wants to help? I could use some help here. Anybody got a good idea? Because you never know where a good idea come from. And to be able to really bring people in to a commonality of cause. This is our cause. We are common on this. We're working together. And that helps, I believe, to build a rather significant level of mutual trust amongst the people in the group. And I think that without trust, you really don't have anything. And that's the fuel, the gasoline, the whatever you want to go, the electric power that actually fuels and makes the group or the organization go. Here's a thought. Here's a question for you. Burnout. Let's go back to burnout just for a minute, because I think it's so important and so on everybody's mind. What do you think the advantages would be for an organization to have a formal coaching program inside their organization for those who wanted to use it in whatever level. In other words, the organization pays a coach or a group of coaches to be there for the people, for the folks, leaders or folks at different levels, to help them work through issues, perhaps of burnout.
Huge, huge. And in fact, one of the things that I include in my programs is that, so we'll do some workshops together, we'll learn together, and then afterward, we do group coaching sessions. And those group coaching sessions are eye-opening. We're sharing best practices. We're also driving accountability in the leaders to practice those new things they've learned on a regular basis. But what happens is they're getting positively reinforced for doing the work of a leader. And not only that, I will say it's a great place to, when you talk about one-on-one coaching sessions and having someone in-house to handle that, it'd be a great place to just vent. So many times as a leader, you have folks coming to you and they just need a safe place to land. And so they have a lot of things on their mind. They're going to vent to you. And so I always tell my leaders, hold space for them, but give them a time limit. Say, hey, I've got 5 minutes for you to just vent. If you need to vent, let's do it. Go full blast for 5 minutes, and then we'll move on and start to work through the issue. But I want to hear about it first. So let's go, right? And that coach inside the house of the organization would, I think, impact burnout rates in a way that when things are released, when things are let go, we can then move on from them. But while people are holding on to that tension or holding on to those thoughts, it's really hard for them to move past. So it would help them work through issues and also have a place to just let it go.
I agree. I think people need help. If you're going to transition from one place to another, you need a road guide to take you along the way. And I think it's one positive and easy way for people to help in their transition. I want to bring this subject up, and I want to get your impression and your perspective on this. And I'm going to talk about a word that you probably don't like, but I just want to do it in a different manner. And that is the word delegation. Okay. Delegation. Now, delegation has always had an internal issue. And we've been talking about delegation for over 50 years. And one of the issues with delegation is while we delegate the responsibility for a particular task, oftentimes we don't delegate the authority to carry out that responsibility. That's always been the bugaboo, if you will, to delegation. But I want to go down this road because I'm actually writing an article on this right now, and I want to get your impression. If we look at the mega word, we now have this mega word in the world of organizational dynamic, and that mega word is empowerment. You see it everywhere, in everything. People, conferences on empowerment, empower this, empower that. Okay, fine. Another word, a synonym for empowerment is delegation. If you look it up, that's what it says, delegation, permission. Normally, when we talk about empowerment, we talk about a sense of transference of power, if you will, from the senior leaders and managers in the organization to more junior members. Okay, that's the flow of it. And I'm really only using delegation here as a way to look at the transference. We delegate, we empower people to do certain things. But in this new world of work, where talent reigns supreme, isn't it true that if a person has, let's just say, 5-10 years experience and maybe even a bachelor's degree in a chosen field, don't they delegate their power of their experience, knowledge, and education to the organization? Isn't there another side or of empowerment, if you will, uh, that truly connects to, if you will, this idea of the talent, in a sense, driving the issues that organizations are facing today.
I 100% agree. Absolutely. So I feel what I'm taking away from what you're saying is that when talent enters an organization, again, going back to the gift, they're a gift to that organization. They're now going to empower the organization to do the things that the organization wants to get done. So there's the engine behind the whole organization. And this is what gets me sometimes is when I'm speaking to a leader who wants to do all those strategic tasks and put together the plan and open the new location and launch the new product in terms to try to get this revenue. What they sometimes fail to understand that at the base of all of that is the people. And so if you are not tapping into the people's needs for a fulfilling, joyful workplace, for work that excites them and is not boring, but exciting and challenging, if you're not thinking about that foundationally first, all of those strategic activities are going to be meh. They're going to work out to a certain level. But if you have a team that is engaged and fulfilled, all of those activities on your strategic plan are going to skyrocket. They're going to be really advantageous for the company. Gallup did a poll recently, just last year, and their findings were that if you engage your employees, if you do nothing else but engage your employees, your profits increase 23%. So why not focus there? And I think that speaks to they come in already empowered.
Yeah, and oh, by the way, we have a specific word for that. When an employee delegates, empowers the organization with their experience and their education, for example, there's a different one, and we call it subsidiarity. Subsidiarity is understanding that the real power lies in the low point of the organization, the low point being people's talent, their abilities, their education, and their experience. I think it's a very interesting dynamic we find ourselves in, and it would never have probably revealed itself as clearly as it's revealing itself now. And the time, I think, for subsidiarity, for people to understand what subsidiarity is upon us. And I am so grateful for it happening because it's about time. It's about time organizations said, wait a minute, there's a whole new thing going on here. And if we don't have great people, we don't do great things. It's as simple as that. So, Joy, let me ask you my favorite last question, and that is, as we're getting close to the end here, if you had a magic wand and could wave it at some issue or problem that you see in the workplace, what would that issue be, and why did you choose that?
My hope and dream is that someday workplaces become everybody that has a job gets to go to work in a place that truly sees and values and recognizes them for their contribution. A place where they can feel fulfilled, excited, and feeling like they're moving toward mastery of something. I really want that for every individual and every employee in a company. And I think if we have that, those companies are going to be better positioned to drive innovation and actually survive in this time of disruption.
I'm with you. I absolutely agree. Listen, Joy, it's been a joy to have you here on the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. One of the best things I get from doing podcasts with different guests is that they make me smarter. And I so appreciate that. I've learned so much. It has completely changed a lot of my perspectives and also nudged me in different directions. So thank you so very much for your time today. Thank you for being here on the podcast. I truly appreciate it, and I wish you all the success in the future.
Thank you, Dr. John.